I have the pleasure of introducing our first employer today and their HR coordinator who is with us. This is Jennifer Veal, and she is with Intuitive Research and Technology in Huntsville. And she has been with Intuitive for 5 years, and she loves her company and the culture there. She's already mentioned that to me today. She has a BS in Human Resource Management from Athens State University. Imagine that, right? And so this is a special return for her today. And she's going to talk to you about Intuitive and their career paths, their company, and give you some tips on moving from the academic world to the world of work. Thank you, Jennifer, for being with us.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. Once again, I'm Jennifer Veal. I am the HR coordinator. My job at Intuitive, I get to do a lot of other things. But I do a lot of training, recruiting, employee events, onboarding, those types of things within my company in the HR. Although we're all kind of HR generalists, those are really where my functions kind of usually lay. As she said before, I'm an Athens grad. I actually was hired as Intuitive as an intern before I graduated, and they hired me full-time. Right now we have one intern from Athens at this point in time, and then we have one that recently graduated who we hired full-time after she graduated as well. So if you guys get a chance to do intern programs, do them. They're worth it. If you do well, a lot of the times they will try to get you on full-time if they can. So enough about me. I'm going to talk about our company, Intuitive. So who we are. Here's our leaders. We have Ray Almodovar, Hal Brewer, Tommy Newberry, Al Killen, and George Pruitt. The reason why I point these out is these two right here, those are the co-founders. And we really have a lot of respect for our leaders at our company. I honestly think good companies are going to say that because they're the co-founders, they have done a great job. We are a civilian, and they've all had civilian and military experiences, over 120 years of combined experience. In fact, I think this is actually wrong, because George started with us this year, and I think that is from last year. They've got strong education backgrounds. We have 2 with different doctorates in engineering, one who is retired military, who did all kinds of different aspects, the one who was in there, a lot of missile defense. And then the Ray and Hal, they were civil servants before they retired and started up their own company. We have a great proven track of engineering, acquisition, and technical management. So depending on what your degrees are, we have people from HR management, business, engineering. We have chemistry majors. It really is a lot of different types of backgrounds that work at our company with different degrees. A little bit more about us. Our mission is to stand above the competition and provide our customers with the exceptional service, quality, and products. We really want to make sure that we provide them with the best things that we can. We try to be the best of the best, and we do a pretty good job at it, but it involves a lot of that background operations point where you've got the training available for people to do that. If they're struggling, being able to make sure that they're on plans to help them work forward, and making sure they're a good fit, not just with us, but with the customers that they might go out and work with. We're our contractor. A lot of our employees are set out on Arsenal. So although they're not at headquarters, they're close to us, and we're able to work back and forth with them to make sure that they have everything that they need to be successful. We are an aerospace engineering and analysis company. We have great leadership. Again, you're going to hear me say that a lot. We have people who have been in the workforce for 15 years, and we have people who just graduated and getting into the workforce. We are split, probably the majority of our employees are Generation Y. So not as many baby boomers as people would think at our company. It's actually a little bit younger. Yes, sir.
You say aerospace. What side of the aerospace field do y'all normally work? Engineering? Is it components, aircraft design?
Both.
Both.
We do aircraft maintenance. We do aircraft design. We're one of the prime contractors at the fixed wing office for fixed wing aircraft, as well as the non-standard rotary wings aircrafts. We do a lot of different areas. We work with a lot of program management, so if we would come in and help if a customer is saying they're having issues in their programs, trying to figure out what those issues are, fixing those problems. We've recently got very involved in system engineering and software engineering for the different programs. In the military right now, you have a lot of systems that have already been created, and they were created in the 80s and 90s, and now the software that was running those systems is outdated. So what they're doing is revamping it so that it will work with the new software. We have a proven performance. Right now we're a little bit less than 300, but we were again founded in 1999, and we are also ISO 9001 quality certified, which is different because we're not a manufacturing company, we're a service industry, so it's always fun when the auditors come there because they audit all our processes, and they have to take the kind of the awards and the things like that in our performance that we've done as the rule to see if our processes are actually working to get us certified. So it's a little bit different than some companies. How we do what we do, we hire top-notch talent. Our interview process at our company probably takes 3 times longer than most companies. We definitely vet a lot differently than some. We have a lot of the latest analyst tools and softwares to help us do that. We also hire a lot of subject matter experts in the area that we're going to get into to help with maybe the younger workforce that's coming up, to train them up and get them up to speed where they need to be. And we have a systems approach to management. It's, process. That's probably one of the biggest words you hear at Intuitive all the time. There's a process for everything. Doesn't mean it has to be a long process, it just needs to be a process that works. And if it's broken, then we need to fix it. So it's always fluid, changing, things like that. We're a great place to work. This is where I get to brag. We are, as of last week, we found out we are #1 best place to work for medium-sized companies in the nation. So this is Forbes magazine that sent that out, and it's a really big honor to us to be able to say that we're #1. You don't see many engineering, defense contracting companies being put up there with the people who have Margarita Mondays and chair races down the hallways and things like that. We can't do that kind of stuff, so you have to be very creative in things that you can do to help your employees enjoy what they're doing. We're also a winner of the Military Times Edge magazine Best for Vets for the past 3 years. This is one of our biggest honors to us. Our company is about 30% veterans at least, and they do hold a special place with Intuitive. Especially with this being the DoD industry, one of our culture is so important to us. We want people to understand when they come to work for us that you're not making necessarily a profit. Of course, that's great, but you need to realize when you go into that defense industry, you're really trying to help those warfighters, which is extremely important to us. So we're very proud of those. We are also the winner of the Huntsville-Madison Time Best Place to Work. This is Madison County that does this, Huntsville-Madison County area. We're the only company that has won it 6 times in a row. And it's another thing that we're extremely blessed to be able to say that we can do it, and that we are. Because the best small and medium workplace, great place to work, and the great place to work in Huntsville are all done by anonymous surveys. They're done by the employees. We send it out, they rate our company, and then we get it back to see where we are. Then they do a culture audit on us for the great place to work, and depending on how that goes, it depends on if you win or not. We were #2 for the past 2 years, and we were #1 this year, so for the best small and medium workplace. We are also, which is not on here, Great Rate is the company that they use to rate those. Those are the anonymous surveys that get sent out. We are #1 for Generation Y, for the millennials. We are #1 for Great Place to Work. We beat Google, which is huge for us that we can actually say we beat Google for Generation Y people to work for as an engineering company. So what it boils down to is our employees just really rate us very high in all the different aspects that they looked into. Okay, where are we located? Our corporate office is here in Huntsville. The majority of our employees are here in Huntsville, but these locations that are lit up are also different areas where we might have 1 or 2 satellite offices. But I would say probably we're right under 300 right now. And I would say probably 260 of them are based here in Huntsville. Okay, so our mission statement is give each client no less than our best. We also, one of the things that I think makes us the company that we are and the different areas that we do work in, it has to all fit into these 4 categories here. Ray and Hal actually wrote a document called Who We Are. He wrote it in 1999. When they started the company, they were actually at Rosie's, which is now Phil Sandoval's in Huntsville. They sat there and talked about it and wrote their business plan on a napkin. They still have the napkin. It's kind of a neat story to talk about, but they wrote this document too. What are the characteristics of a company that we want to make sure we have so that we can be successful and really stand out from other companies in the area? So they decided who are we, who we are. So we are a professional company. We want to make sure that we're always trustworthy. We have very high moral and ethical standards. We're customer oriented, making sure that our customer service is top notch. We're committed to something. When we say we're going to do it, we're going to do it. And excellent quality in everything that we give out to the customer as well as what we would give to our employees. So these are all types of standards that our employees need to have. They need to give their other employees or coworkers as well as the customer. What we believe is we believe that you need to have trust and your service are the heart of any relationship that you are working with. And once again, that goes across the board with yourself as well as your coworkers and your customers. You need to have integrity, honesty, and you need to keep your word. And again, quality of service. We won't commit to things unless we don't think that we can do them. In the government contracting industry, some companies will go after a proposal, go after a contract, and they'll just put everything they can out there just to see if they can win. We don't. If we don't think that we even have a chance, or we think it's risky that we might have to hire some people and let them go, we don't go over those types of contracts. It's just not what we do. We use the experience and the work performances of our employees that we already have, and of course if it's adding a couple, that's fine, or if we have good teaming mates that we can go after those, we will. But if we make a commitment, then we really try to do our best in everything that we can do. What we expect from our employees and what we expect other people to hopefully think of us is, I just realized I copied it twice, professional and individual growth. We are not a cookie cutter company. Everyone is an individual at our company, although we have processes. Each of us have our own separate lives. We all have a different type of what you guys might have heard as work-life balance. We don't say that at our company, we say well-being. Because if you have a work-life balance, you take something away from work and you're trying to balance the two, it means you're removing one from the other, and that's not what we try to do. We try to make sure you just have good well-being. The ability to try. One thing that we are always trying to do with our employees is get them to, push them a little bit farther, see how far they can go so that they can grow. Rather that be going after certifications, finishing degrees that you might not have, or, if you want a higher level degree. We've actually had 2 people right now working on their doctorate. We've already had one finish his doctorate, and I can't even imagine how many people right now are working on their master's degrees. Our company pays 100% for reimbursement, for tuition reimbursement for those that have been there for over 12 months. Creativity, that's extremely important to our company. We actually have a program that's called Creative Incentive Awards, where employees can submit their ideas, and it could be one of the ones that we had most recently, which I think they're actually trying to see if they can find someone to manufacture it, is a suitcase seat. So, people who travel all the time, they have to stand in long lines or things like that, so it's a little seat that pops out from inside the suitcase, and they can sit down on it, or little things like that. There's all kinds of ideas here, but if anyone submits an award, then they get a bonus. So it's not a very big bonus, but it's a bonus. So you could come up with an idea, and it might be just the silliest thing you've ever heard of. But we have a panel that actually looks at those on a monthly basis, and if they think that they're a good thing, then they will submit it to go farther up in our internal research and development group that we have. But if they've got a great idea, then they'll still get a bonus out of it. We also expect our employees to take initiative. We do not micromanage. we're all adults. We don't think that we should have to be constantly on our employees. You guys got your degrees, you know what you're doing. Of course, you're gonna need help, but we don't think we need to stand there over your backs and tell you to push, push A, push B, things like that. You can figure it out on your own. If you need help, you're gonna let us know. So we want our employees to take the initiative, and we expect our employees to do that. We also have a huge open door policy. I showed you pictures of our leaders. We have a very flat organization, which is different compared to some companies. There's not a lot of steps between an intern and the president and CEO of the company. We do that because we want everyone to feel like they can come to anyone and talk to them and make sure that their opinions matter and that they're comfortable with speaking with whoever it might be. Sometimes when you have, deputy program manager, director, vice president, president, things like that, although we do have all those titles, and there are some that are that way, we try to make sure that everyone feels as comfortable as they can be. On our first day, at least one, if not all, or a mixture of them, of the employees, of the executives, will come and say hello to the new hires when I bring them in. We walk them around corporate office, introduce them to as many people as we can, because since our employees are based out on the Arsenal, that's another thing that we have. We work towards trying to make sure that they feel like they're an intuitive employee, because you get stuck on the Arsenal and you're working in a project office, you kind of feel like you get, swelled into that area. That's not what we want to do. We want to make sure that they understand that we're there to help them. Let's see, I think that is the last of my presentation, but our culture is extremely important to us, and these things that I've touched base on are some of the things that we do. We have Textbook HR, I believe, or it was there for a while, 100 employees to one HR professional in a company. We have less than 300, we have 5 people who work in HR. So I'm able to get to do fun things like this and come out and talk to you because we were able to spread the tasks around a little bit more. But our company does look at our HR department as a strategic partner, which when you're looking for companies, I think it's important to look for too. HR should not be the bad guy, because I think a lot of people feel like, oh, you only go to HR when you get hired, you get fired, and you have a problem. They should be there to help. So I guess I'm going to get off my HR rant about talking about how your HR people should help you. But that's, I think, what makes us stand out, and one of the reasons why we're a great place to work is that we're able to take those ideas that employees have, feed them up the food chain if they haven't already told them themselves, and work towards having more of a cohesive workforce. I was going to talk, excuse me, I was going to talk a little bit about interviewing. Does anybody have any other questions about our company? Want to know anything else about it? They were established in 1999, and they were actually based out of Texas, and they moved to Huntsville. Well, actually, Ray lived in Texas, Hal lived in Huntsville, and then Ray moved here, I think, 2 years after it started. And they hired their first employee in 2000, who still works with us, but Ray and Hal are 1 and 2, and then we have number 3, who's still there with us. We have a 96% retention rate, which, especially in the government contracting industry, is almost unheard of. But it's because we are very strategic in everything that we do. A lot of companies, I'm not saying that it's a bad thing, but this is just reality, they will win a contract, they'll have funds on that contract, and as soon as that requirement is up, so is your job. That is not how we do things. We have never, knock on wood, ever at this point so far, had to lay anyone off due to loss of funding on a contract, which is huge, and it's something we're extremely proud of. A lot of our management team spends a lot of time trying to figure out, okay, we have an employee that's running out of funding in 6 months, where are we going to be able to move them? We don't have a spot, we better go find a customer who has a need that has some, a need with the experience that they have. That's something else that's different than a lot of other companies. And it's nothing necessarily saying that other companies are a bad, or that's a bad thing. That's just not our culture. That's not what we want to strive to do. Loyalty to Intuitive is important, but the loyalty that Intuitive has to their employees is, I think, another thing that takes us to stand out. during the sequestration and furloughs, I know you guys were either might have been affected by it or knew someone that was. We made sure that our employees understood that they were not going to be affected by it, that we were going to take care of them even if they couldn't go to their work location on the arsenal that was shut down. We would make sure that they were taken care of. So, yes.
And you notice you do a lot of government projects and things like that. What type of security clearances are required?
99% of our jobs do require security clearances or the ability to obtain and maintain one. Doesn't mean that you have to have one when you start with us. We will get a clearance for someone to be able to work with us, but yes, probably 98 to 99% of them require clearances.
Yeah, let's say I'm prior military, I carry a high security clearance. Does that help get the job performance? I mean,
Some companies would say yes, but we hire the best person for the job.
I understand.
So some companies like to see it on their resume. You can tell us in the interview process. It's great because it does shorten the time frame before we can actually hire you. It's another thing that we do differently. We have contingencies that have to be met before we hire someone, and all of them have to be met before we're hired. So if there's one thing that's there's an outlier that's not done, we'll push start date back until we get you hired. It's just we think it's cleaner that way. It's easier for you. We don't tell you to put in a notice until, if you're working at another company, until it's gone through. But yes, it is. Some companies like it, especially if they're trying to do a quick turnover. That's just not what we do. If it takes us two and a half months to find the perfect person for that position, it takes us 2.5 months. Any other questions?
You may have already addressed this in dealing with that, or do Intuitive offer like employee reimbursement or tuition assistance?
Yes, we have a wonderful tuition reimbursement program. We pay 100% for books, fees, and tuition for all degrees once they've reached 12 months of service with us. We will pay them, we reimburse them. For masters, they have to make an A or a B. Bachelor's, it has to be an A, B, or C. And then we pushed one person through his doctorate. They actually worked it out to have a customer pay for his research. So he went down to Birmingham, lived there, was able to clock 40 hours a week for work when he was really working on his PhD. And then we have 2 that are working on it through FIT right now on the Arsenal.
Let's say you do that, what are your requirements for the employee after they get their degree? Do they have a certain time period they have to work for them?
We set up, if someone, we actually work with Athens too on their ADP program that they have. Because we have had some individuals, it's a big push for us to try to make sure that everyone in our company has a degree. For one thing, it's better for you guys. They're going to pay for it in the long run. If you left the company, you've got your degree, they pay for it, it's wonderful. On the other hand too, because of our culture is the way it is and we don't want to let anyone go, it's a lot easier to find other work for someone, because in the defense contracting region of work, labor categories drive everything. If you don't have the requirements for a labor category, then we can't bill you or charge you to that contract. Then the government customer is going to say, well, I don't want them, because they can't charge you, so you're going to be carried on overhead. So when it comes to like a time frame to get the degree, you have to start working on it.
Well, not so much get the degree, let's say you get your degree and you've got it, and they've paid for it. Do you have any stipulations that the person
A
has to stay with
commitment?
it?
Yeah, we do have a
with the company?
commitment.
Okay.
Which is funny, because a lot of the employees will say, well, it says that I have to have a 2 or 3 year commitment, can I make that 5? So, it's a big joke, but it's good to hear too. Yes?
What, other than engineers, what type?
We have people who have communications degrees and business degrees. They do a lot of analyst work, or systems analysts, program analysts. That could be budgeting, looking at spreadsheets, things like that. Programmatic work, they could be working in the project office, trying to find, more management type degrees. We do have a lot of mechanical engineers, electrical engineers, software engineers. But we have people who have history degrees, English degrees. It just really depends on what their background is, what type of position we're looking for, and if they're a good fit. for our culture. I think that's probably one of the biggest things. You know, I always tell people during the interview process that our process does take longer than most, but one thing, we are interviewing them, but when you guys go out to interview for companies, you're interviewing that company just as much as they're interviewing you. And it really needs to be a good fit, not just for you, but for that company. One thing we try to do is get them to, you know, candidates to meet 3 or 4 different people within the interview process as we work, you know, as it progresses up the ladder, so that they can see if this is really a place they want to be. Because you could have every requirement that we need for you to hire you, but if your personality doesn't click with that manager that you have to work with, it's not going to work out. You're going to do subpar work if you don't like your job, regardless if you want to or not. And you're not going to want to talk to management. You're not going to come in when you have a problem or you want to let them know something. And it's, you know, I think that's extremely important. It's not just the requirements, but personality fit. So you want to make sure you're a good personality fit with the companies that you go to.
Does the company anticipate ever expanding to Europe?
We have employees that travel there, but I don't think we'll ever open up a satellite office there that I know of. Now, that could change next week. But I think at this point in time, they're looking at branching out, and it might change. They're looking at doing not just Department of Defense work, but we have really a big push for right now for our internal research and development, as well as trying to break into some of the other, you know, government areas, as well as just public sector stuff and private sector stuff. Excuse me. Any other questions? I was going to talk about interviewing. Does anybody have any questions specifically about interviews? And I can kind of start from there. Yes.
What kind of questions do you like to hear in an interview?
What kind of questions do I like to hear in an interview?
Like about the company?
I like questions about the company. Of course, I like to talk about my company, as you guys have already found out. I do like questions about the company. I think it's important to research the companies before you go, because a lot of times I have there's a skill that person's going to tell you, and they might have already answered the question you have written down. So you want to research each company that you go to interview with. Not just look for the good stuff. Don't just go to their website. If you go to Intuitive's website, you're going to see how great we are, because that's what we stick out there. We're going to talk about how wonderful our company is, all the great things that we do, all the capabilities we have, but you're not going to find anything else. Go out and Google and look for bad stuff. You know, look for the bad stuff, because you could find something out that makes you realize, rather, you know, say you are completely anti-gun, anti-military, you know, war fighting stuff, and you realize that one of the main things that Intuitive does is, I'm not saying this is what we do, but the main thing that we do is build missiles for, you know, the military. That might not be the best place for you to work. You might not want to work at that type of company. So, or you could go out there. Glassdoor.com is a good website to look at for employees can rate their companies. Be careful, because sometimes if there's someone who's let go, they'll go out there and they'll bash the company. So try to look at it and see how honest that person is. Usually if they're giving completely negative comments, chances are they probably left on not so great terms. But there's still some good ones out there. You want to try to figure out which ones are, you know, those honest opinions. And you know, if you see 4 or 5 bad ones and only 1 or 2 good ones, I might take that into, you know, consideration. But if you see 4 or 5 great ones and 1 horribly, horribly bad one, keep that in consideration too, because you never know what happened with that individual to put that out there. Chances are they probably left on a not so great note, and they're just trying to be mean and just put something out there. But look for it. You'll never, you know, you'll find great things in news articles and different things like that. Use your network. You know, the Athens, Huntsville, Madison surrounding areas is pretty small when you start asking questions. So talk to them, see what other people know about the company, and what they think of management. I think that is really important, is the type of management that they have. About questions for the company, I think once you do that, you'll start to see. One of my favorite is, what do you like about Intuitive? Of course, then I get to talk about Intuitive again. So, but I think it's important, because if someone who didn't really like their company anymore, it's going to be harder for them to pull stuff out and see what they have. you should always bring a question to an interview. I mean, you should always have at least one. So if you find a good one that's gonna make them think, that's even better. You know, you can always ask them what their size is, you know, what kind of revenue they make, what kind of, you know, benefits and things like that. Our process, the first interview, we'll ask them some questions, I'll tell them about the process. If someone asks me about the benefits, I tell them we usually do that farther along in the process. So benefits is not always the best question you're gonna only have. You know, make sure you've got another age in your pocket so that you can pull it out and ask.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
Could we ask how you like the benefits?
How
You like the benefits?
I like our benefits?
Yes.
They're wonderful. They, I think we have a competitive benefit package. You know, we think it's in line with the most people that are in our industry. We medical insurance, dental insurance, life insurance, things like that. But what we tell people in the interview is not even everything that we do. We kind of hold that other stuff. We try not to talk about it too much because it keeps us our competitive edge. People want to figure it out when they get there, they don't want to leave. It's the different stuff that we do. But I can talk about some because it's out on the website. We do things like we have a quarterly fair where, you know, all of us are so busy. We have kids. The only time we get to take off is because our kids have to go to doctors, and that's really all the time that we have. So we kind of forget about ourselves. So we bring in a clinic that comes in and does like the blood screening you would have done at a physical. We bring in a physical therapist for those who might be having some issues that they can talk to them, a nutritionist, a massage therapist. We also bring a member from a local food store, health food store that comes in and we set up appointments. Then we do other things. We've had a pharmacist come in to do what we call a brown bag special, where it's you bring all your medication in and you put it on the table and say, this is everything I'm taking. Because a lot of people forget to tell their doctors the different things that they're taking, and they realize they're taking way too much medication. So trying to help them in the long run, which, you know, in the long run it really helps the company, because if you're taking 2 different medications, they're doing the same thing, then you go back to your doctor and talk about it. We do that quarterly. We have lots of lunch and learns. We have, you know, we'll put out tickets, things like that. We do like a movie night where everybody gets together and we rent out 2 movie theaters at the Monaco so they can bring their families. We have, you know, a couple different year in business. We have the year in business review, which is our a little bit more of a formal gala. Everybody gets dressed up, pretty dressed or a nice suit, and go out near the end of the year. We have those types of things, but the benefits package and the prices that the employees have to pay for their benefits is very competitive. They make sure to try to keep those costs down so they can help us out as much as they can. Yes, ma'am.
I have a more specific question about your benefits. What company do you use for your insurance?
For health insurance, Blue Cross Blue Shield of Alabama. Yes.
I have a question. It's actually a question that you had asked in your interview process. I was wondering what would be a quality answer for someone to say if you asked them what are their strengths or weaknesses, so to say.
Quality answer to strengths and weaknesses. Don't ever say you don't have any weaknesses. Everybody has weaknesses.
Is that
But
something like?
I know.
if you're going to point out a weakness, like one of my biggest weaknesses is that I have a hard time saying no. And my lucky enough, my coworkers kind of bring me in, but I'll have, you know, 4 or 5 people come in and ask me to do something, and I'm like, okay, yeah, I'll get it done. And then I'm swamped because I've got all these things, and so my coworkers will bail me out most of the time. But you know, if I was going to answer that question, I would say one of my weaknesses is that I'm, you know, I have a hard time saying no. But I'm working on this by doing these things, and they want to see that you know, you're able to take a problem that you might have and turn around and try to fix that problem, because you're going to run into that everywhere, you know, not just at your job, but in your life in general. So don't say you don't have any weaknesses, because it's not true. So think about it, you know, really think about what it is. Now, I wouldn't say if I was going, say, for a program controller position, which is working on Excel spreadsheets all day long. If that's the job that I was going after, I probably wouldn't say that Excel is my weak spot. So, which I've heard before. So just be careful when you know, look at the company that you're going to, look at those things, look at the job description that you're going, you know, the job you're going after. Try to find out what your, you know, what your strengths are, You know, so if someone asked me that question, I would say I'm very strong in Excel if it was that position. And I might think of something else to say that it maybe, you know, that you need to work on.
And one more question. When another question you may ask, possibly towards the end of the interview, what would your best answer be, or why would you be considered a quality candidate for a position?
What would my best answer be?
Or is this,
I think it also it goes back down to the specific position that you're going after. If I was say I was going after a software job that's gonna stick me in a cube all day and I'm gonna write code, and that's what I'm gonna do. And I say that my best quality is working with people, then even though they might have the great requirements that they have, that's not the job you want. So that's gonna tell someone that that's not a good fit for us, because you're gonna hate your job, because you're gonna be stuck in a cube writing code all day, and you're not gonna get to talk to anybody. So I really think it depends on the type of position. You can ask good questions like that, or, what type of work atmosphere is, what's the work atmosphere, is it everyone stuck in a big cube room, or is it someone, do you have individual office space, how much interaction with other employees do you have, those kind of things, because some people like to be by themselves and like to work and, 8 to 5, get the job done, they'll talk afterwards. Some people are very social, they can talk at the same time, they get along with others, they don't mind someone being in a room next to them or a cube next to them talking on the phone about what they did last week. Sometimes that drives people insane. So, think about all those things when you're looking for jobs, because it's gonna matter when you get there. If you don't like being in a cube and you're stuck in a cube all day, you're probably not very happy with the job. Yes.
Jennifer, I have 2 questions. I guess the first one is, could you talk and just mention where the best places are to find opportunities with Intuitive? Would they be on your website? Or do you
Yes.
post them to other job boards?
Yeah, we do post to our website. All of our positions are posted out there. You'll also find them on, Alabama Job Link. Most contractors have to post out there. It's a state requirement. We send a lot of them to different transition offices and things like that. We could send them to Athens State if there's any specific positions, especially entry level. We could start doing that as well, if you'd like me to do that.
We'd love to do that.
I post all those, so I can do that. But the website, if you called me and said, here's my resume, you'll get a response from me that says, thank you for your interest, please apply online. That's the short and sweet one. But of course, it wouldn't be just like that. But it is, we have to, as a government contractor, we have what's called an affirmative action plan that we have to write. And I'm not sure how many of you have had HR classes and things like that, but we have to have a write of an affirmative action plan, and therefore we have to have lots of data on different people. And so most contracting companies are going to have you apply online. Most companies do it all the time now anyways.
One other question.
Yes.
Do you use a phone screen as part of your interviewing process?
We can, depending on the location of the candidate. If they are, Athens, Huntsville, even into, Middle Tennessee, we really try to bring them down to meet us, because body language and eye contact and, the different ways that you act when you answer a question is important to us when we're looking at different candidates. So we just think it's better to do face-to-face interviewing if we can. But phone screens, if you live in Arizona, then the first time I talk to you, we're not gonna fly you out. But 95% of the time before we hire you, we're gonna fly you in.
I asked that question just because more and more companies are using a phone screen. Unlike Intuitive, even if they're in the same city with the candidates, they still do them. And
Yeah.
so I've had more and more students talk to us about, being more comfortable doing them. So if you had 1 or 2 tips to share as we end up today, that'd be great.
Okay, with phone screens, try to find a quiet place, preferably not where the dog's barking. I've actually had a phone screen where I've had the dog barking in the background the whole time, and they're like, shh, you gotta be quiet, da, da, da. And I'm like, that's not professional. Just try to find a nice, peaceful, quiet spot. If you're working and you have to do it during work hours, just go sit in your car. and do it on, you know, on the phone there. Make sure you try to have good reception. If you think your reception is gonna be bad in the area you're gonna be, try to give them a landline that they can either call or you can call them. Those are two good tips for phone screen.
I have a question because I've been actively looking, I got laid off back in February, and I've got a lot of experience in my field, and I was paid well. So I go into interviews now, and of course, you know, what is your salary requirements? Well, I don't want to undersell myself, but I don't know what your target is either. The minute I tell them what my salary was, you know, they're like, oh, that's out of our range, or, you know, and then a lot of times they don't give you an opportunity to say, well, you know, that's negotiable or something. But,
I'd
you
start
know,
with that.
yeah, but that is the problem, you know, because, you know, I have no idea what your range is. And then a lot of times, if it's just you're applying online, and I'll try to even put a range, you know, I'll drop it lower and say, okay, you know, I really don't want to undervalue myself, but, you know, I'll take a range from here to here. I still don't know if I'm being thrown out, because, you know, if this guy's saying, well, I'm only gonna pay this, and she's out here, or, you know, but I don't want to undercut myself either.
A lot of the times when they ask for salary ranges, even though they're required areas to type something in, they're text box, so you can put negotiable. So, in most of the online applications, you know, they're gonna ask for a salary range, and it's not gonna let you skip that question. But 95% of the time, it's not gonna be like a drop down where you have to pick, you know, 50, 60, 70, 80,000. It's gonna be a text box, so you just type in negotiable. I would say do that anyway,
You know,
type in negotiable,
because
because
face to face,
face to face, I'd still tell them it's negotiable. Well, you know, what's your salary range? Well, it's really negotiable. You know, what, can you tell me a range on what this job pays, and I can tell you if I fit into that range. And then that might be a way to, you know, reflect the question back on them and see if they might give you an answer. The other good thing is, you know, if you're looking for, what's your background in?
contracts,
Contracts?
20 years contract experience.
So you can do contracts administrator and look online what the average
Well,
range is
I-
in
you
here.
know, the last interview I went on, I had NCMA's salary survey, and that actually worked in my favor, you know, because I was like, well, for this and this, and they were paying me right in the middle.
Yeah.
And he started off first saying, when he saw my previous salary, he was, well, that's a little high, and then when I justified it and said, well, here's what the salary is,
Yeah.
then all of a sudden he was like, well, that's kind of within the range. I'm like, I know it, you know, because I was kind of like buying a car, if you know your price going
Yeah.
in, you got a little more,
Yeah, a little bit more wiggle room.
room, you know,
You got more room to,
Right.
yeah. And I mean, negotiating is always good. You can negotiate anything. Negotiate start dates, you can negotiate bonuses, you can negotiate how much of leave you're gonna accrue. Make sure you do your research if someone gives you an offer. If it's a good offer, like we pay, honestly, we pay you for what we think you are. We're not gonna undercut, that's not what we do. We don't think it's ethical. When people are like, oh, I can pay this person this much to make, you know, 30%, 30 or 40% profit off of them. That's just not, that just goes back to our culture, that's not what we do. But doesn't mean that other companies don't do it, so you can negotiate with them. So you can ask them, you know, can I get a little bit more of this, or, you know, do you guys have, for instance, tuition reimbursement? You can ask to negotiate that. Can you wait the 12 months for me to start now? So negotiation is always important during the interview process, although it's probably not the best thing to bring up in the first interview. Depending on if the process is, we're only having one interview. That's, you know, they might tell you up front, this is what we do. Most companies around town, their interview process is a little bit quicker than ours, so it's hard for me to say. Maybe you can touch base more on that. Ours is, we just find the best person that we can for it. Yes.
Do you ever do an internship or anything?
Yes, we do. I was an intern. We have 4 or 5 right now. Our interns are a little bit different. They work full-time, 40 hours a week with our company, and then they still go to school full-time. Now, if they've got classes that they have to leave for, of course, we're gonna let them leave, or if they're having a problem with, you know, if they're having a hard time on class and they need to take more time to study, then we're gonna let them out. But we try to give them real work experience. We do co-op programs with a lot of, we work with Tuskegee, North Carolina A&T, Auburn, Mississippi State, Alabama, Georgia Tech, for co-ops that will come in and work a semester or work a semester off. We give them real work experience. Our interns aren't filing and going and getting coffee and stuff like that. Not saying that they might not have to do some of that stuff, but we actually give them, if you're getting your degree in business and you want to go into budgeting, then we're going to make sure you're getting real work experience in that area. Or if you are contracts and you want to work in contracts, we're making sure that they get real work in those areas. Because
When do you look to have paperwork in for your internship? In other words, let's say someone here wants to try an internship.
ours is a little bit different because if we have a need for an intern, we'll call Athens and then get them to get that. So I would definitely say if you have not set up your paperwork to see if there's internships, do that like today. Because you never know what kind of great companies are out there that are looking, but some of them might be like us where they don't have a necessary standard. We're gonna have 4 interns this year and we're gonna let them go, because there's not been a single intern at our company that's not been hired full-time. So our interns, we've had one that's been there for 4 years. It's taken him that long to finish his degree due to certain reasons. He actually started when he was a freshman in college, so he's getting ready to graduate now. I was there for a very short period of time. Another one of our Athens interns, she was there, I think, for last semester while she was working on finishing her degree, and then we hired her afterwards. We have one Athens intern right now who's working on her degree. We actually had we just had another Athens graduate not too long ago. We also have what we call student hires, who might only just work like, the summer semester.
Probably have time for one more question.
With an intern going into the interview for the intern position, their work experience might not be what y'all are, or the type of experience they needed. Would that be like a factor in it? Because, like say, I've waitress and that's all I've done.
I was a manager of a restaurant for 7 years before I started working.
I mean, do you just kind of wrap that around what they're looking for?
I took what are you getting your degree in?
Human resources.
Okay, you've got lots of experience in human
Right.
resources being a waitress.
Yeah.
You just word your resume to where you can talk about that. Highlight your customer service skills. Highlight the, working with money, because a lot of times payroll's housed in HR. Working with people who are not quite so happy. Those types of skills that you have. Highlight all those areas and talk about that in the interview process.
Okay.
I think that's, in fact, the 3 interns we've had from Athens actually were all waitresses or restaurant managers when we hired them. So it's not necessarily a bad thing. I think it's, great customer service skills, no matter what job you're going after, is important. So I think that's fine. And any company that you're going for an intern for, they should realize you're not going to have experience. That's why you're going for an internship.
Right.
So they should work with you. At least good companies will do that. They're not going to expect someone to go into a contract position and no contracts. Otherwise, why would they be interning? They're trying to gain experience. But talk to Sarah Lynn, get that information that you need so that you guys can get out there. Because what they did with me, other thing, and then I'll stop talking, I promise. Make sure you're keeping in contact with your advisors. Please, even if you don't go into your, you talk with her about interns, make sure you're talking with your advisors. Go talk to your advisor at least once, if not 2 or 3 times each semester. Make sure you're keeping on track. That's what I did. Dr. Lefebvre was actually my advisor when I was here. And the reason why I got my job was they called her. They didn't call the career development program. They called that advisor and said, we're looking for an HR intern. Do you have any good candidates? And she's the one that sent me the resumes. So just keep that in mind. As many contacts as you can, the better.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much. It's so wonderful.